said that representatives of 23 countries, including 3 members of NATO, US, Turkey and Hungary, have observed zapad 2025 drills in Belarus. US military officers have paid a surprise visit to Belarus and observed joint war games between Russia and Belarus. The US officials were told by the Belarusian Defense Minister Viktor Krenin that they could look at whatever was of interest to them. Russia and Belarus began the zapad 2025 exercise at training grounds in both countries on September 12th. The Russian Defense Ministry has said that zapad joint strategic exercise aims to improve military command and coordination in the event of an attack on either Russia or Belarus. Moscow and Minsk have said the exercises are exclusively defensive and they did not intend to attack any NATO member, though NATO announced an Eastern Sentry operation after the incursion of Russian drones into Poland last week. The presence of US officers is the latest sign of warming ties between Washington and Belarus. The US had earlier also granted sanctions relief to Belarus's national airline, Belavia, in return, allowing it to buy components which included the Boeing aircraft. Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations, is live with us on this story. Andrew, what is to be read into this surprise visit by United States officers to Belarus and what they found there?
Well, first of all, with respect to what they found was Russia demonstrating, this is deterrence via optics, Russia demonstrating new hypersonic missile capabilities and various other new techniques and technologies. But the really interesting thing from my perspective is an historical piece, that these observers were on the ground via the institution known as the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. It used to be the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe. It's a product of the Cold War. You think back to the mid-1980s, NATO staged a massive exercise called Able Archer. And the Russians interpreted this as NATO getting ready to invade the Warsaw Pact and began to mobilize. And it was a crisis in the same league as the Cuban Missile Crisis, for example, or the Berlin Crisis. It brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. And so what was instituted around that time and became institutionalized after the Cold War was any country on either side of that old divide that's going to have a major military exercise, it will invite foreign observers to make sure, to reassure everybody that it is merely an exercise and not a prelude to some direct military action. So the institution seems to have both persisted. It's still around, even though the Cold War and the post-Cold War era are long over. And it seems to be doing its job. American observers on the ground could verify that this wasn't Belarus getting ready to invade. This was something different, something, as I said, deterrence optics, if I can put it that way. So we can strike that up as a success for our Cold War and post-Cold War forebears. They had great foresight.
All right, Andrew Latham, appreciate you joining us with your